KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Hello, folks. Hey, welcome. This is the Real Men of Real Estate radio show brought to you by me. This is Patrick Franz, your host, the Note Mentor, and I am here today to bless you with some wonderful information about note investing. You know, that's what my show's about. Financial intelligence is what I preach. Note investing is what I teach. And every single week here on my radio show, or shall I say every single month, I do this once a month. Should be the second Sunday of every month, folks. But what we talk about, folks, is mortgage note investing, right? As an alternative to other investment vehicles, maybe as being a landlord, because people know that when you're a landlord, you deal with the terrible T's. I know my guest that's coming on is going to know all about those, but the tenants, the termites, the toilets, the trash, they're all the terrible T's. Who wants to deal with that, right? And so we have an alternative. It's mortgage note investing, where you collect monthly payments from real estate without actually owning the real estate. And that's what we talk about on my show. I plan every single show to bring for you folks and you listeners out there, amazing guest speakers that have been in the trenches. They're successful professional note investors or vendors in the industry to give you a very well-rounded education when it comes to note investing. But let me tell you this, guys. All you listeners out there, realize that this is a radio show, folks. This is not legal advice. This is not investment solicitation. This is a radio show. It's for entertainment, education, and it's going to be from folks like me and other folks that I bring on as guests that, again, are in the trenches, and it's going to be about stories and opinions and those kinds of things. And so before you do any investing out there of any type, folks, seek some real legal counsel and make sure that you're getting into the right thing and that you know what you're doing, okay? And that's just my wise words of wisdom. But today, folks, you're going to have a great show to listen to. I hope we're going to entertain you and educate you. And I'm going to bring an amazing guest on. His name is Sherman Arnowitz. And Sherman is one of the folks in this industry that has paved the path for people like me to get into this industry. He's wise, he's intelligent, he knows what he's doing, and he specializes, folks, in second position, or what we call second liens. And that's his specialty. And boy, is it interesting. You're going to love the information today. So don't go anywhere. Keep listening, because I'm going to bring him on and we're going to talk about note investing, and today specifically second lien note investing. But for those of you maybe listening to my show for the very first time today, you're probably thinking to yourself, what in the world is note investing? And what is this guy talking about? And so if you're listening and for this is your first time hearing about mortgage note investing or note investing, I'm going to bring Sherman on and we're going to introduce him, and maybe we can both kind of, Sherman, get into telling these folks what note investing is and maybe why it's a pretty cool alternative, maybe opposed to the stock market or regular real estate, like being a landlord and those kinds of things. And then we'll get right into seconds. But let me bring my amazing guest on. He's polite enough to bless us with his presence, folks, and you're going to love the information you get from Sherman. Here's Sherman Arnowitz, right? Sherman, introduce yourself to these folks and tell them, when did Sherman Arnowitz find out about this mystical thing called note investing?
First of all, I thought this was the online dating podcast. So I'm a little confused, but I'll do my best to talk to you. I know a little bit about second mortgage investing, but thank you, Patrick, for having me on. I appreciate it. Big fan, longtime listener. And so what is mortgage note investing? First of all, I've been doing this for over 25 years. And I got into this business by mistake. I had lent my college roommate $5,000 right out of college with the promise from my college roommate and best friend that he would pay me back within 30 days. He was doing some sort of real estate transaction. And so 30 days went by, 60 days, 6 months, a year, et cetera, et cetera. And at some point I put it away and I said, all right, I guess I lost $5,000. And about 15 years later, I got a certified check in the mail from my college roommate for $5,000 and his phone number. And I had called him up. And of course, the first thing I said to Scott was, where's my interest? And so we just got to talking, and he enlightened me as to what he was doing. And he told me about this tale of, he would go to banks and ask if they had second mortgages that were not performing that the banks wanted to get rid of. And I had asked him, well, why would the banks want to get rid of these mortgage notes? Why wouldn't they hold on to these mortgage notes? And these are residential second mortgage notes as opposed to first mortgage notes. So somebody takes out a first mortgage and maybe time goes by and they want to redo the kitchen, or they want to redo the bathroom, or add on to the house. And so they take out a second mortgage, assuming there's enough equity in the property. And so they take out that second mortgage for 10, 50, 70,000, whatever it is. And at some point, for whatever reason, they stop paying on their second mortgage. Maybe they lost their job, maybe they got in over their head. And the banks keep trying, and they send out letters and phone calls and nothing. And at some point, the bank has to make a decision. Should we foreclose on this borrower, or should we just try to get rid of the loan, or should we do nothing? And a lot of banks opt for number two, which is, let's sell off these loans and we could write it off our books. And so it becomes a win-win situation. And so people like me come along and we have a relationship with the bank, and we say, hey, bank, thank you for the list. On this loan of $50,000, I'll give you $10,000 for that loan. And so we buy that loan, and it's as good as we now own the loan. It's the same as PNC or Chase or Citi, but now we own the loan, and now we have a choice of what to do with this loan that we purchased at a discount. And so, as I said, it's a win-win situation. It's been going on. I've been doing it 25 years. And when I first started, I could list maybe 5 to 7 other investors that were in this space. So it really was the wild, wild west. And so we would make contact with these banks and we would make these deals. For instance, Household Finance was one of the banks that I dealt with. And one of the things that Household Finance told me is that when we sell you a loan where either the borrower is over 65 years old or the borrower is disabled, you can never foreclose on them. And that was a deal that we had to sign. And the reason I found out is that Household Finance had started a lawsuit, a foreclosure on a gentleman who was over 65 and disabled. And what in the article came out is that the borrower only owed them about $1,000 left on his mortgage, and that was it. And yet the banks went through the courts and they got a foreclosure on this person, and the newspapers picked it up. And so, the bank really had a lot of egg on their face. And so that was the protocol. So we developed relationships with these banks. And then we can get into a little bit later of what we do with the borrowers and what's our strategy with the borrowers.
Yeah. And, I talk a lot about first lien mortgage note investing. And folks, we're talking about buying the promissory note that people sign when they borrow money to buy a piece of real estate, right? And becoming the bank, like Sherman's alluding to, it's you become the bank, just like Chase Bank. But number one, it's cool that when we're into this business as individual investors, Sherman, that like you say, these loans or these debts that we're purchasing as investors are the folks behind that paper, like the borrower, right? Like you're talking about. To us, they're not just a number. And that's a cool thing about this note investing as the investor, is that we get to help a lot of people. not only help ourselves and make a good yield and all the things we talk about, what makes note investing cool for our portfolios, but we get to help those borrowers, and those borrowers are real people, man, and they're real people. They got real problems like everyone else. And they're not just a number on a computer screen at a big bank, like they would be at Chase, maybe, right? And so amazing that would even slip through the cracks, right, Sherman, that somebody, a big bank, would foreclose on $1,000 debt owed, and it probably cost them $3,000 or $4,000 for the attorney to do the foreclosure. Who wins in that situation? And so we can be better to the borrowers, folks, as note investors, which is really, really a cool thing and a good blessing about the business. But when I talk about first liens, maybe you can reflect on this and compare to seconds, Sherman. But when I say first lien note investing is really cool, is because there's like really three main things that can happen when you're the investor. Either the borrower can pay as agreed until the end of the loan, and you've made a nice yield and cash flow the whole time. They can pay you off early, and since we buy notes at a discount, that always works out okay too. Or they can stop paying, and then in first position, of course, it's fairly easy to foreclose and get paid by taking back the asset if that has to happen. But in second position, how does that relate?
You made a very good point, and that these are people. And, with the first mortgages, it's all about the house. When you're doing the research to buy, it's what's the house worth, and what am I willing to pay? With second mortgages, it's about the house, but we also do research on the person, okay? And it's a big responsibility, because these people have been stressed out, whether they got there on their own, whether somebody, we have the debate about, is it the bank's fault because they allowed this person to borrow the money that they knew that they couldn't afford, or was it the borrower's fault because he knew he couldn't afford $1 million house? So either way, we're at a point where we buy those notes at a discounted rate. So now when we compare first mortgages to second mortgages, look, the advantage of a first mortgage is you're in the first position. And so you can puff your chest out. If you've done your homework, you know that, okay, the house is worth $300,000. The first mortgage is $200,000. There's enough equity in there that if the borrower starts to default, hey, borrower, you're either going to pay me or I'm going to foreclose on you. And that's it. And chances are very great that when you paid for that loan, there's very little space. You've paid 85 to 90 plus on that dollar. So it's not like with a first mortgage, which is a little bit of a disadvantage, that you can wheel and deal with the borrower, right? So the advantage is you're in the first position. The disadvantage is that you're going to pay more. There's no wiggle room there, okay? And the other disadvantage is you're paying a lot of money. And so with that example of a $300,000, home, and let's say that the first mortgage was $200,000 and you're going to pay 80 to 90 cents, that's a lot of money that you're going to spend to buy that first mortgage, okay? We can buy a lot of second mortgages for the same price. So with the second mortgage comparing, the disadvantage clearly is that you're in second position and you're behind the first mortgage. And so if the first mortgage forecloses for whatever reason, and there's no surplus of funds, we're out of luck. But it's the nature of the beast. And I tell my students, whether you're buying 5 notes, 50 notes, or 500 notes, there's going to be 100%, a certain percentage that no matter what research we've done, we're going to crap out. And the senior lien's going to foreclose. We're going to have nothing. And
Absolutely.
back to your original point before I,
1 second, we're going to be right back, guys, because you know what, Sherman, I hate to cut you off, right? We're going to be getting more into this. I know the audience is excited to hear more about this second lien note investing. And there's a lot to learn. We're going to tell them how in just a few minutes. Folks, don't go anywhere. First commercial break coming right up, and we'll be right back.
Are you a real estate investor looking for a new opportunity in one of the top tourist destinations in the world? Look no further. Welcome to Punta Cana. Perla Bahia is a private resort-style community in Punta Cana that consists of modern condos, custom villas, and various commercial amenities. So if you're interested in learning more or joining us on one of our monthly investment tours, don't hesitate to contact me today at 909-494-2280.
Choose power today and help us create a cleaner planet. Over the past years, utility prices have rapidly increased. Power provides home energy solutions that would save money. Power is the world's first virtual solar company that aims to adopt sustainable energy worldwide. Our company delivers low-cost, clean, and reliable energy solutions. The solar investment allows you to become eligible for an income tax credit. The solar investment is a great way to provide long-term value. Power is the first solar company that reduces carbon footprint for a cleaner environment. Power is experienced and one of the fastest growing solar companies in the United States, which provide the best solutions according to your needs. Call today for your free solar consultation. Join us as one of our ambassadors and earn $1,000. Earn $1,000 when the installation is completed. Free sign up at www.power.com/marie.waite/ambassador. Feel good about what powers your life. Marie Waite, your solar consultant. 951-378-5316. Enjoy your life with solar.com.
Hey folks, thank you so much for being patient. That was just some great stuff from our sponsors there, wasn't it, folks? Yes, it was. And we're back here on the Real Men of Real Estate radio show. Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor. I'm your host, back with my guest, Sherman Arnowitz, master of second lien note investing. And we were just talking about a little bit of the comparison before the break. You deserve that. You deserve that. He did a little hands up. And, you know, there's a difference, first lien and second lien. We were talking about right before we left for the commercial break. You were saying, yes, there's advantages and disadvantages. One of them is that if you're in second position, the first lien can foreclose on the borrower. And if there's not enough surplus funds left over, you as the second lien note investor are out of luck, you said. Okay. Keep elaborating on that.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's part of the game. And if you're going to have the balls, to be in this business, you have to recognize that that's the reality. But before I get into that, one thing that I wanted to say is when I would tell people what I do, a lot of their reactions were, oh, you kick people out of their homes. And I would respond to say just the opposite. I keep people in their homes. And it's such a huge responsibility, you know, and our decision from a corporate level is we try never to foreclose. And that's just our own, you know. And if a borrower is working, and this has happened many times, if a borrower is working with me, we have, especially around the holidays, we get emails from the borrowers that say, hey, would you mind if I skip December? I want to buy gifts for my kids. How can you say no to a request like that? And as long as they're working with us and they're a good client, that's great. That's never going to happen with a bank. And so my only point is there is a responsibility. All right. And I know some investors that their goal is as soon as they buy that note, they foreclose. They start the foreclosure process. They don't give the borrower any time, any notice. Their philosophy is, hey, they know they owe the money. I'm not going to waste time, you know, trying to get in touch with them and hear their stories. It's kind of a shock and awe type of philosophy. And whether they want to do it, I don't know what the success rate is or not, but if they buy 35 notes, they're going to start the foreclosure procedure on all 35 notes. And then, you know, our philosophy is, let's start out. We have A, B, C, and if we have to get to that level where We sent out the welcome package. We tried contacting them. We sent out letter 1, 2, and 3. We give ourselves 3 to 4 months to try to get the borrower to perform. And at the end of the 4 months, if we find we've tried everything we could do and nothing's happened, then what we do is we do a potential for foreclosure worksheet. And we go back and we say, okay, what do they owe the first? What will they owe us? And what's the house worth? And it's at that point that we make a decision. Is there enough equity that we can do it? Or should we just hold on to the note and maybe call them once a month? Or should we try to sell the note? So going back to what you were saying about the advantages and disadvantages and the differences, you know, second mortgages is, to me, super cool because there's so many different options. There's so many hats you get to wear. You don't have to be good at all the hats, and it's especially important to recognize what you're not good at. But we play detective. Once we get the note and we buy the note, we're now a detective, and we have to skip trace to find the person. Once we find the person, we put on our psychologist hat because we know that the person owes us money. I could say probably 7 to 8 times out of 10, when I finally get in touch with a borrower, their first response was, I don't owe you any money. I don't have a second mortgage. And now you have to go calmly and explain to them, I have the proof. I'm going to send you over the proof. And then that next call is just very silent because they know, in a way, they know they've been caught and there's really no way out of it. But now that we're at that point, I'm here not to hurt you. I'm here to help you. Let's try to figure out together how we can make this work. What are your goals, Bar? Number one, what can you afford? Do you want to get rid of your second mortgage? Are you a potential candidate for refinancing? Because we're buying at such a discount, there's so many different options that we can present. One of the options, for instance, if let's say that the UPB, the unpaid principal balance, they owe us $30,000. But the fact that they haven't paid us for 4 years, their past due balance might be $5,000. That $5,000, when we buy the note, we're only buying the note based on the $30,000, not on the past due balance of $5,000. So that $5,000 really is gravy. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you get some of it, sometimes you get none of it. But if we start getting a borrower paying, I've even done at the beginning when I get the borrower and I introduce myself and they say they're going to pay. And I might say to them, hey, we have a program. If you pay us 12 out of 12, out of that $5,000, we're going to knock off $500. Boom. So it's a nice incentive for them that they're getting something. They see a little bit of an end in sight. You know, we've done where if their interest rate is high, 11, 12%, hey, Bar, every time you make a 12 out of 12 for 12 months, if you pay us 12 times, I'm going to knock off 1% off of your interest rate. And so you want to form that sense of, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm going to help you. And so that's a major, major difference than with first mortgage. You can't do that with a first mortgage because you paid what you paid, which is in the 80s to 90s. And so there's really no room to say, oh, instead of $2,000, you want to pay me $1,000. You just can't do that. So there's ups and downs, you know, there's advantages and disadvantages. Certainly if somebody came to me and when they called and they say, I'm interested in investing, and I say to them, how much are you interested? How much do you have in your piggy bank? And they say, I have $25,000. I say, well, you're probably not a good candidate for investing in first mortgages. So let's talk about second mortgages, and we go along that way. So those are really some of the major advantages and disadvantages of the two.
Yeah, and I think either way you look at it, it's promissory notes, right? It's buying debt that is secured by physical real estate. And that's really the theory. Okay. And yes, you have first position and you have second position. And like we're discussing with Sherman Arnowitz, there's pros and cons to both, right? There's pros and cons to each, but essentially what we're doing, folks, is buying the debt that is secured by physical piece of real estate. And that's the theory behind what we're doing. And like you said, you're either working with the house value because you're in first position and your focus is that at end all be all, at last resort in first position, you can foreclose on a homeowner or a borrower if that's the necessity, and you have the real estate that you're going to take back as your collateral. Okay. And that's what makes it a secure investment compared to something like cryptos or the stock market. Whereas, it's speculation. You hope it goes up and you watch your charts all day long. And you're, when they go up, you go like this with your buddies. Woo, woo, woo. My stocks are going up. My cryptos are going up. But when they're going down, there's no woo, woo, woo. There's more crying and pouting and saying, oh boy, the markets aren't doing so good. But it's really out of your control. Now, being in control, like we're discussing, is a good position to be in, but also comes with a bit of responsibility, folks, as we've said. You understand? We're dealing with people's lives. This is their mortgages. This is the debt they've taken out that belongs to the house they live in. They're raising their kids. They got their dogs running around the backyard. The home is where the heart is. And here we are where we can get involved in buying someone's first lien mortgage note, or like Sherman specializes in, a second lien, and have the ability to not treat borrowers. Folks, that's me, you, and everybody listening, right, who owns a home. You're a homeowner. If you didn't buy your house cash, you got a promissory note and you owe someone some money, right? And it's really cool not to be just a number, like Sherman is saying. And maybe the bank's in, and the big banks can sell these things at a discount and move on, and they don't take big losses. They've already made plenty of cash flow and such. And maybe they have a good place to redeploy the money. So they'll sell the assets off the books to put the money in a better place. And this is how banks operate, guys. But when it comes down to us as an individual investor, and you can buy a mortgage note and collect someone's mortgage payment every month more passively than being a landlord, it's a powerful position to be in. And it's a great thing as an investor because you got a secure investment. It spits off monthly cash flow, comes with normally, as Sherman may agree, we might say a better than usual yield when comparing to other investment vehicles. And so it's got all this positivity, but can you really handle the responsibility that you are dealing with someone's house, someone's debt they owe? And it's a real human being that has stories, right? Like you said, the big bank, Sherman, foreclosed on a guy because he wasn't paying on $1,000 worth of debt. And he was a guy that was up in his ages and disabled. I mean, what kind of bank does this, right? Well, only a bank that doesn't understand. And that individual was just a number on a computer screen. And
when you think about it, the banks created the industry that I'm in, and I have been in for over 25 years. Because if the banks weren't banks and had the mentality of banks, when we went through COVID and the banks were able to look at us somewhat like human beings and say, oh, do you need an extension? Do you not want to pay for a couple of months? Okay, that's fine. And side note, even that screwed me up because I took advantage of that. And when the bank asked me if I wanted a couple months off, and I said, yeah, that would be great. And I allowed 4 months, they allowed me to not pay. And so after the 4 months, I started making my payments again. And at the time I was trying to refinance. And my broker called up and said, hey, did you get a program that you weren't paying? I forget what they call it, for 4 months from the bank? And I said, yeah. And they go, you can't refinance. You have to show that you're 6 months away out of that program, that you've been making 6 months payment since that program.
Well, a lot of people got affected by this, Sherman. I don't mean to cut you off. We're going to have to take our second commercial break. I don't want to keep from our sponsors' time here, but don't mean to cut you off. We're going to come right back with this story about the forbearance and such. And I know a lot of people got affected by this. So folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Are you a real estate investor looking for a new opportunity in one of the top tourist destinations in the world? Look no further. Welcome to Punta Cana. Perla Bahia is a private resort-style community in Punta Cana that consists of modern condos, custom villas, and various commercial amenities. So if you're interested in learning more or joining us on one of our monthly investment tours, don't hesitate to contact me today at 909-494-2280.
All right, folks. Hey, thanks for being patient. We're right back. And those were wise, wonderful words from our sponsors. And I'm back here on the Real Men of Real Estate radio show. Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor, with Sherman Arnowitz, the man, the myth, the legend, the master of second lien note investing. And it was so funny, folks. I just learned during the break there that he's a music enthusiast and that he creates songs and he's opened up for bands. And I'm going, I never knew this about Sherman, but we won't be able to get into that on today's show because we talk about note investing on this show. But amazing stuff, right? A man of many talents. But you were just talking about, how COVID even affected you a little bit, or, you maybe wanted to take advantage of one of those programs that was happening. I think they called them forbearance programs, where people were requesting from banks, hey man, maybe my job got messed up from COVID or what have you. Can you just help me where maybe I can skip mortgage payments for the next 6 months or something and then start over again. And that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. And, that being the point being is that the bank never mentioned to me about, hey, if you do this program with us, here's what you got to be wary of. If you're going to try to get a mortgage or refinance, this is what the deal is. And so it really in typical bank fashion. But I think going back to the banks did create this industry for us, because if the banks would have been more flexible with their borrowers and treated them like real people, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to go in and do what we do. And so, the other thing that I say for your listeners is that owners of second mortgages, we have the right to foreclose. I don't know whether everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. Certainly the first mortgage has the right to foreclose. We also have that same exact right, because it's a secured debt, as the senior lien. So if the borrower is paying the senior lien, but they're not paying the second mortgage, if it makes sense, where there's enough equity, they owe the senior lien $100,000 and they owe $20,000 to the second, that's $120,000. And let's say the house is worth $200,000, there's plenty of equity. And so is it worth me spending $5,000 to $7,000 legal fees to do the foreclosure? Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Even if it doesn't, one of the things, as I said at the very beginning of this, is with the first mortgage, they're just concerned about the house. With the second mortgage, we're concerned about the house, the value of the house, et cetera, plus the person. And so a lot of times when we're looking at data, whether we're going to buy this loan or not, we look and there's probably about 10 different variables that we look at to make a decision whether it's worth buying or not. And if you imagine a piece of paper with the pluses and the minuses, that's what we do kind of to make sure, hey, does it make sense to do this? Part of it is, how long has the borrower been living in the house? So somebody that's been living in the house for 10 plus years has emotional equity in the house. And so that's a plus on the plus side. And so even though we might look at the loan information that we're going to buy or not buy, and maybe in a lot of cases, there's no equity. Okay, they owe the first 120 to the second, that's 120, and the house might be worth $80,000. So we look at it and say, hey, there's no equity there. But that doesn't matter. In most cases, there's not going to be equity. But now what we look at is we look at the other stuff. So if somebody's been in the house more than 10 plus years, I also look at the FICO score. The FICO score on a credit report is the most underrated piece of information. It's a financial temperature that's telling us the financial health of the borrower. So again, if there's no equity, but they've been in the house 10 plus years and the FICO score might be 600 or 650, those are great signs that end up on the plus side, right? If I can find out that the guy's been working in his job for 15 years, These are all factors that are going to make a good decision for me to say it's worth it. Because if you're going to go into this and say, I only want loans where there's tons of equity and this and this and this and this, you're not going to find many loans. And of the loans that you are going to find, you're probably going to end up spending 70 cents, 80 cents plus on the dollar to buy these kinds of loans.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting to see that there's just, even now, and you know, Sherman, you've been in this game for, you said 20, 25 years, right? And still, even though the market has grown as far as investors learning that this is an option and trying to figure out all the education and the terminology and everything it takes to become a professional note investor, that is growing immensely, almost day by day. But yet it still seems that here going into 2023, not a lot of even savvy investors, and I mean even savvy investors in the adjoining market, which is real estate, because notes are attached to real estate, but even like savvy real estate investors, savvy stock market investors, savvy crypto investors, savvy people, okay, that have no idea that you can own someone's mortgage note. Right? Isn't that strange? So it's growing day by day. Folks listening to radio shows like mine, right? You're learning that you can own someone's mortgage and have an investment that is secured by a physical piece of real estate. It spits off monthly cash flow and has a better than average yield. And I like to say those things. And can you also lose money? As Sherman's been saying, yes, there's no perfect investment. This is all risk. You can lose money in notes. You can lose money in second position. You can lose money in first position. Nothing's perfect. It's not rainbows and butterflies. But when we're comparing these investments, folks, whether it's first or second lien note investing, to stocks, to your company individual retirement account that is diversified in some fund all over the market, you don't even know where it is or who's in charge of it. And it's like, take control of your financial growth, right? Take control of your cash flow. Some people love having stocks, right? Some people love having cryptos. Sherman, I own a little bit of both, man. But it's so funny that the only thing I get to do is open up my computer or my smartphone, look at the chart and go, hey, look at me, I'm doing good today, or hey, not so good today. And I'm watching it. Those don't spit me off mailbox money every month that can help me pay my car payment, or I can compound, which is an interesting thing, right, folks? But there's lots of other places you guys have your money sitting. Most people's IRAs and 401ks are just getting eaten to death, right? They wish they knew about this, number one. And when they listen to a radio show, Sherman, and they listen to guys like me and you, they're going, man, this is kind of like eye-opening. I didn't know about this. This seems cool. But when it goes from intrigue to educated, there's usually a pretty big gap there. Everybody who hears about mortgage note investing, first of all, says, wait a minute, that sounds too good to be true. Or wait a minute, how come I've never heard of this? You know, I've been around 50 years and I've never heard of this, so it must not be true. So you get all that. But folks, banks have been doing it forever and ever and ever. You can do it too. You can become the bank. You can have someone's mortgage. But here's the coolest thing. It spits off the monthly cash flow. In first lien position, I can buy a performing note, which means someone's living in the house and paying their mortgage on time every month, and I can take that over and start collecting a monthly mortgage payment every month. You can also do that with second liens, can't you? One of the things that Sherman's telling you is because second liens are bought at a little bit bigger of a discount based on what the homeowner owes the bank. You're buying it for a little bit less, which is a discount. And because there's more wiggle room in a second lien, can't you do the same thing, Sherman? Couldn't you buy a second lien and buy it at a really great discount and then work with the borrower to say, hey, you know, the payment on your second lien used to be $325 a month. I've seen that you've been able to stop. You haven't been able to make payments. You've stopped paying on that second lien. Could you afford something like $200 a month? And the borrower will says, well, yeah, I mean, I could afford $200 a month, but just not $325 a month. And Sherman has the ability to say, listen, if you can afford $200 a month, and you want to stay in that house and you don't want any issues and you want to just pay this second down and such, I can do that for you. I can modify the balance to a different balance, or I can change the interest rate, or I can change the term. Or Sherman, you have the power because you've become the bank. And so in that power position and that responsible position, if you want to help a homeowner, you do have wiggle room. You can say to the borrower, listen, if you can afford to pay $200 a month, let's just make your payment $200 a month and we'll continue on and you can start making payments. Now, what that means, folks, is Sherman went out there and bought a second lien, maybe someone's old equity line of credit that they stopped paying on because they did their kitchen remodel or repaired the backyard or put in a swimming pool, who knows, but they stopped paying on this second mortgage or what have you. Sherman picks it up at a discount and is able to work something out that becomes a win-win situation. A win for that borrower because maybe they can afford $200 a month and they can start being on track and current and not having bad stuff on their credit and so on. And in the meantime, Sherman turned a pretty small investment when it comes to second liens, 10, 15,000, 20,000, something like that, but turn it into something that now is a cash flowing asset that is now producing Sherman $200 a month. Sherman, how many notes do you got to have in your portfolio that produce you $200 a month cash flow to get to 10,000 a month? It's okay, folks. You don't have to be a math expert to be good at notes. We have a financial calculator for these things. But the point being made, folks, you can understand you only need so many mortgages that pay monthly cash flow to supplement your current lifestyle, whereas you have to go to work 9 to 5 every day and drive in traffic and still continue to trade your time for money. And the reason why we love note investing, whether it's first liens or second liens, is because you can eventually replace your working income and stop trading your time for money. And you can have passive cash flow that could supplement your lifestyle and give you financial freedom. Now, in order to be a pro at this though, Sherman, right? I'm sure half the people listening to this show are already mind blown. There's a lot to learn. And I know that Sherman understood this years ago and created a coaching academy, right?
He did.
And the Coaching Academy, folks, we're going to have a little bit of an announcement today to tell you after this next commercial break. But, you know, I reviewed it and it is really well done. I've had a lot of requests from our group, which is the Note Investor University, where you can go to get more information on how to learn to become a note investor. But you know, we specialize in first liens and we have now for the past, 8 years or so, 9 years. And we've had a lot of requests from students at the Note Investor University that we really need to have a subset or a course on seconds because they go together. You know, you can't specialize in one or the other. I feel like you should know both. And when the opportunities arise, you should be ready to pull the trigger on either. And so I have taken our students' advice. And I have reached out to Sherman here, not only to come on the radio show and help you guys understand what second lien note investing is, but also to make an announcement after this commercial break about how we can help you dive in and have a really well put together program to where you can go through a regimented program and learn how to become a real expert and a professional at investing in second lien mortgages. Okay. So you're not going to want to go anywhere. You're going to want to hear this announcement. It's only going to be a couple of minutes, I promise, but here comes the words from our awesome sponsors. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back.
Choose power today and help us create a cleaner planet. Over the past years, utility prices have rapidly increased. Power provides home energy solutions that would save money. Power is the world's first virtual solar company that aims to adopt sustainable energy worldwide. Our company delivers low-cost, clean, and reliable energy solutions. The solar investment allows you to become eligible for an income tax credit. The solar investment is a great way to provide long-term value. Power is the first solar company that reduces carbon footprint for a cleaner environment. Power is experienced and one of the fastest growing solar companies in the United States, which provide the best solutions according to your needs. Call today for your free solar consultation. Join us as one of our ambassadors and earn $1,000. Earn $1,000 when the installation is completed. Free sign up at www.power.com/marie.waite/ambassador. Feel good about what powers your life. Marie Waite, your solar consultant. 951-378-5316. Enjoy your life with solar.com.
Alrighty, folks. Hey, thank you so much for waiting so patiently. The Real Men of Real Estate radio show on KCAA, folks. We're back. We're back with Sherman Arnowitz. This is Patrick Franz, the Note Mentor, your host, and we were talking about second lien note investing, why it's an awesome investment vehicle that you must learn. You must have these in your portfolio, folks. Yeah, you can have stocks, you can have cryptos, you can even have some stuff out there and who knows what, but you got to have mortgage notes in your portfolio. It is cash flow producing, an asset that is backed by a physical piece of real estate and usually has a better than normal yield. So who doesn't want this stuff, guys? So learn about it, but it takes a lot to learn. And you can learn, Sherman, reading books, can't you? Yes, you can. You can learn watching YouTube videos. I mean, heck, all of this is out there for free on YouTube channels and so on and so forth. But it is very difficult when it's not regimented. It's very difficult to try to take pieces, parts from certain books, something you heard at a conference, something you picked up on someone's YouTube video, and then put it all together to become a real professional and know what direction to go and how to walk the path. So you created a coaching academy that I've reviewed and is extraordinarily well done. And folks, the announcement is we're going to bring this on as a part of the Node Investor University, where you guys can go and learn how to not only invest in first liens, but second liens and be a pro at this node investing stuff. But how long did it take, man? And what kind of concentration did you have to put in and what time, man? Because I reviewed the coaching and it is stellar. When people go through it, they're going to be amazed at the content and how well it's put together. Tell us about the coaching group.
It took us about 2 years to put it together. I wanted to put something together. After being in business for about 15 years, I wanted to put something together. And I was seeing other people announce coaching programs. It's a small industry we live in. And I was quite amazed that these people were doing it, because I kind of felt like, should they really be, and kind of knowing them and the knowledge or lack thereof. And so I wanted to put something together that I know I would want to learn from, and the methodology in putting it together. And so it took 4 of us about 2 years of putting together the text and the videos, the quizzes, the final exam, to really put something together that is really A to Z, that somebody is going to come out of this and go, I have a really good comprehension. I kind of do the analogy of if you're flying an airplane, and I used to be a fun student pilot. And before I could even touch an airplane, I had to go to ground school and I had to learn all the basics and all the fundamentals. Yeah. And then finally, after I graduated that, I was allowed in the airplane. And that's kind of like, the online course that we have. It's 30 something chapters, and it really gives you the basics. And once you get through that, then we kind of go to the next level to kind of get you in the airplane. One of the things that you had mentioned before about the ability to change this and change that and work with the borrowers, and okay, I'll drop the interest down or I'll extend the terms for you to really accommodate the borrower and still be financially responsible, is I remember starting out and doing this. And honestly, I kid you not, I thought there was like a banking police that were going to come in and like kick the door open and say, you can't lower that interest on him. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that, no, you could do whatever you want. It's your note. Yeah. One of the biggest myths that we hear all the time is, I don't have the time to do this. I got this and I got that and I got the kids and I got this. A lot of my students, I ask them, what are you doing this for? Are you doing it to get supplemental income, or are you doing this for career change? And obviously I hear both answers. And a lot of times someone says, I'm going to start out supplemental, and then they get hooked. And then they change it over to, I want to do this as a career. And one of the things I want to rest here and put it at rest is that once you learn the course and once you have the basics, it's not rocket science, and that's the biggest thing I have to express. It's not rocket science. When I started out in learning, there were so many acronyms that people were using, and I think it was more to intimidate people. It's not rocket science. And so you don't need a lot of time to do this. I promise you, you don't need a lot of time. Once you have it, you do the due diligence, the skip tracing, you contact the borrower, and you could be earning between 20 and 40% return on your money.
Yeah, and folks, you can also lose money. But the point of the matter is, I've seen a lot of people that have read one book or they've picked up some things off of YouTube, and they maybe have some past real estate investing experience and think, well, I got this. And just make real amateur mistakes that could have been prevented by somebody like Sherman, somebody like myself, or other respectable coaches in the industry that are actually in the trenches doing it, not people that did it 20 years ago and are coaching it today when the industry is totally different. Somebody that's in the mix, guys, and doing it, like Sherman's saying, as a full-time career, and learning the ins and outs so that you just don't make silly amateur mistakes. I mean, come on, you made such a good analogy too. I love that analogy. And I used the car one, right, folks? When you were, 15 years old or 16 years old, getting your driver's permit and trying to drive your mom or dad's car for the very first time, it was all overwhelming. You didn't know which little switch flicked the blinkers and how to push the clutch in if you were trying to learn how to drive a stick shift back then. And then you also have to look in the mirrors and pay attention to what's around you, and forget parallel parking, huh? But now you understand, after you had some driver's ed, you had mom or dad or somebody who was in the trenches, they were driving cars every day. It was second nature to them. They taught you how to do it. It was nerve-wracking at first and overwhelming, like anything, but eventually now driving a car to you is, what do you call it? Second nature, right? So that's the key to Sherman's training. That's the key to his coaching program, folks. This is like something you can get into and say, look, I know it's going to be a little overwhelming. I know at first I'm not going to know what turns the blinker on or what brake pedal to push or anything like that. But once you learn this stuff, it doesn't go away. Once you learn this stuff and become second nature, you become a pro car driver. I guarantee you folks listening, and maybe some of you are listening right now from your car. Was it difficult for you to get in? Did you know where to put the key, start the motor? Did you know how to put it in reverse, back up, look behind you, check the mirrors? Sure, second nature. Didn't even have to think about it. In fact, on autopilot. And that's what we're saying you're going to get from this program. So folks, it's going to we're going to get it ready, and I think we're going to launch it in January. Already a very widely successful program. Sherman's taught, who knows, thousands of students over the years on how to do this. And here you go, folks. It's going to be a get in the passenger seat. Sherman or I get in the passenger seat. We watch you get in the car. We give you a little driver's ed on second lien note investing. We teach you how to push the brakes and the so-ons. And eventually, folks, in a very short time, you will be a pro, and investing into these first and second lien mortgages will become second nature to you. And who doesn't want to add this kind of an investment vehicle to their portfolio amongst all the rest? I mean, guys, you can still go out there and buy your Dogecoin and hope for it to rocket to the moon and all those things. But in the meantime, have some cash flow, be able to compound, be able to regulate the amount of money you actually end up retiring with, folks. And don't let it be subject to the ups and downs of the market. Take control, and you're going to be able to do that by going to the Note Investor University and learning all about this. And in January, we're launching the Seconds program with Sherman Arnowitz. Thank you so much, Sherman, for being on the show today. I'm sure you've blown everybody's minds, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was great speaking with you, and I look forward to moving in the future.
Absolutely, folks. You heard it from the #1 second lien note investor of all time, Sherman Arnowitz. But folks, listen, thank you so much for tuning into my show. We'll see you next month in January to kick the year off with my first show of the year. We will be seeing you then. And do me a huge favor, just please enjoy the rest of your wonderful Sunday.
Don't miss a minute of the action. Check out the podcasts at www.kcaaradio.com, the station that leaves no listener behind, KCAA.
Rita Armihol with